I was William Parker, a 38-year-old restaurant chain owner in Miami, and my business partner Greg and I had been running a successful business for 8 years. I had known Greg since university and trusted him completely. We had opened 3 restaurants together and made about $800,000 in annual revenue. We managed all financial transactions together and shared our joint account. But Greg's sudden decision to take a vacation last month seemed strange. When I checked the company account, I saw that $150,000 was missing. Greg's phone was off and no one could find him. But he didn't know that thanks to a precaution I had taken years ago, I could track everything. My name is William Parker and I operate restaurants in Miami. I'm 38 years old and started this business 10 years ago. When I opened my first restaurant, I went through very difficult days, but I never gave up. I met Greg Hartwell at the University of Florida. We were both studying business administration and became very good friends. Greg was a very smart and ambitious man. After graduation, we worked in different cities, but never lost touch. When I moved to Miami 10 years ago, Greg was also living here. When I was planning to open my first restaurant, I offered it to Greg. He enthusiastically accepted and became my partner. We opened our first restaurant in the South Beach area. It was a small but charming place, and we specialized in seafood. Greg was responsible for kitchen operations, and I handled the business side. The beginning was very difficult. Competition was very intense in Miami, and finding customers wasn't easy. But we were both very hard-working people and never thought of giving up. We made almost no profit for the first 6 months. Sometimes we even made losses. But we never compromised on quality and paid great attention to customer service. Gradually, we started to build our regular customer base. By the end of the second year, our business started to improve. Our reputation spread through word of mouth and more customers started coming. Greg's talents in cooking were truly impressive. In the third year, we decided to open our second restaurant. We found a bigger place in downtown Miami. This time we focused on Italian cuisine. Greg was also very successful with Italian dishes. The second restaurant was also very successful. It became a popular place for people who loved Italian cuisine in Miami. Reservations were always full and people waited in line on weekends. In the 5th year, we opened our third restaurant in Coral Gables. This time we decided to try fusion cuisine. It was a unique concept that mixed Asian and Latin American flavors. The third restaurant was also very popular. We had established a special place for ourselves in Miami's food scene. Restaurant critics also praised our food and we received positive reviews. For 8 years, Greg and I worked very well together. We never experienced any major problems between us. We made financial decisions together and agreed on everything. Greg's business skills were truly impressive. He managed vendor relationships very well and specialized in cost control. He was also very successful in staff management. I handled the marketing and customer relations side. We actively used social media and participated in community events. Our brand awareness was constantly increasing. Our financial structure was very clear. We used a shared business account and both of us had full access. We reviewed monthly financial reports together. We shared profits equally. At the end of each month, we calculated our earnings and transferred them to our personal accounts. This system worked perfectly for 8 years. Cash flow was very important in the restaurant business. We needed to balance daily sales with expenses. Greg was very organized in accounting and kept records meticulously. Our employees were also very loyal to us. Greg and I had created a good work environment. Our staff turnover was very low and we had an experienced team. Our relationships with suppliers were excellent. We made regular payments and negotiated long-term contracts. We could buy quality ingredients at competitive prices. At the end of last year, our financial performance had reached its peak. The combined annual revenue of the 3 restaurants was around $800,000. Our net profit margin was also above the industry average. Greg and I were discussing future expansion plans. We were thinking about opening a 4th restaurant. We were researching suitable locations in Fort Lauderdale. But last month, Greg's behavior started to change. Greg, who was normally very communicative, started becoming distant. He seemed distracted in office meetings. Greg told me he was experiencing personal family issues. His divorced brother had children custody problems and he needed to help him. This was a reasonable explanation. 2 weeks ago, Greg told me he needed to take a sudden vacation. He needed to be present at his brother's legal proceedings. He needed to travel out of state. This timing was very inconvenient because we were in busy season. But Greg's family situation was important, and I showed understanding. I approved his short-term absence. Before departure, Greg updated the financial records. We reviewed pending payments and planned upcoming expenses. Everything seemed normal. After Greg's departure, I started managing the restaurants single-handedly. It was challenging but manageable. Our staff was very helpful and took over extra responsibilities. A week later, I needed to make a major supplier payment. When I accessed the business account, I noticed the balance was much lower than expected. Initially, I thought it was a calculation error. I started reviewing recent transactions. Daily deposits and regular expenses seemed normal. But when I did a detailed analysis, I made a shocking discovery. I saw that Greg had made a mysterious transfer of $150,000 just before his departure. This transfer was recorded as a wire transfer in online banking. The destination account was an unknown private account. The reference number was also a meaningless code. I immediately tried to call Greg. His phone went straight to voicemail. My text messages also remained undelivered. Greg was completely unreachable. I started going into panic mode. $150,000 was a significant portion of our working capital. We would have difficulty making upcoming payments. I tried to contact Greg's brother, but the phone number Greg gave was invalid. I couldn't find anyone by this name in directory assistance. That evening, I went to Greg's apartment. I talked to the building manager. I learned that Greg had terminated his lease and moved out his belongings. At this moment, I realized that Greg had scammed me. The family emergency story was completely fabricated. Greg had stolen the money and disappeared. The next morning, I went to the police station. I reported the embezzlement case. Detective Johnson was assigned to my case, and I gave a detailed statement. Police tried to locate Greg, but he had already left Florida. Out-of-state movement was detected on license plate readers, but exact location was unknown. The detective told me that recovery chances were limited. White-collar criminals often move money quickly, and it becomes difficult to trace. But I hadn't revealed my secret weapon yet. Years ago, I had taken a precautionary measure without Greg's awareness. I had implemented a digital tracking system. I kept detailed logs of every transaction that accessed the business account. GPS coordinates, device information, and timestamps were automatically recorded. I was able to trace the exact location where Greg made the transfer. The transaction had been made from an internet cafe in downtown Miami. I checked the security cameras. The cafe owner recognized Greg and confirmed that he frequently used that location. He said Greg always paid cash and didn't share personal information. But the cafe's security system had captured Greg's license plate. I provided this information to the police, and it significantly advanced the investigation. Meanwhile, I hired a private investigator. A licensed PI who was a financial recovery specialist used additional resources to locate Greg. The PI tracked down Greg within a week. He was staying at a cheap motel in Las Vegas. Apparently, he had started losing the stolen money gambling. We arranged for Greg's arrest by coordinating with the police. With the cooperation of Las Vegas PD, Greg was taken into custody and extradited to Florida. When Greg was arrested, it turned out that only $80,000 of the remaining money was left. He had already spent $70,000. But at least partial recovery was possible. Court proceedings began and Greg faced embezzlement charges. The evidence was overwhelming and Greg eventually entered a guilty plea. The judge gave Greg a 3-year prison sentence. Also, a court order was issued for him to pay full restitution. He would make monthly payments during the probation period. Greg's personal assets were liquidated. His car, jewelry, and remaining money in his bank account were seized. This way, an additional $40,000 was recovered. I was able to recover a total of $120,000. A loss of $30,000 remained, but this was acceptable considering the circumstances. Our business was in a position to survive. The insurance company approved our business interruption claim. Thanks to additional coverage, some of the losses were compensated. I restructured the operations of the restaurants. I implemented new financial controls and eliminated single-person access. We established a checks and balances system. I hired a trusted accountant. We started doing monthly audits and increased financial transparency. We took precautions to minimize future embezzlement risks. I explained the situation to our staff. Initially, they were shocked but showed understanding. They made extra effort to ensure business continuity. I renegotiated with suppliers. We adjusted payment terms and overcame temporary difficulties. Our long-term relationships remained intact. 6 months later, the business completely recovered. Our customer base remained stable and revenues returned to pre-incident levels. We successfully weathered the crisis. I started looking for a new partner. But this time, I would do much more careful due diligence. Background checks and reference verification would be comprehensive. Eventually, we found a qualified candidate who was an experienced restaurant manager. We made a gradual partnership transition plan and started a new collaboration. Our legal team monitors Greg's restitution payments. Monthly installments come regularly, and the remaining balance is gradually decreasing. Greg applied for parole for early release from prison but was denied. He was required to serve his full sentence. Our victim impact statement influenced the parole decision. We resumed our business expansion plans. We restarted the 4th restaurant project and finalized the Fort Lauderdale location. We maintained our growth trajectory. Our industry colleagues showed support. Assistance was offered from the Restaurant Association, and our peer network was strengthened. Local media covered our story. Business resilience and fraud prevention awareness was promoted. Positive publicity provided additional benefit to the business. Financial recovery was completely complete. Greg's final restitution payment was received and the case was legally closed. Justice was served. Currently, the business is thriving. We built a stronger operation by applying the lessons learned. We managed to survive the trust betrayal. Greg's current situation demonstrates the power of justice. The principle that crime doesn't pay was validated. Appropriate consequences were faced. My experience serves as a warning to other business owners. Including safeguards in partnership agreements is of critical importance.